Hi, everybody. Welcome into our live stream Q&A conversation with an incredible human being, Dawn Aiken. I'm going to bring her in just a second, but I just want to show her off here the amazing things that she's done this past year. In May of this year, she summited Mount Everest, the highest point in the world. Um, and and I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to her here in just a moment. Um, we are going to have a live Q&A. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on the Basecamp platform for our Recal Mountain Athlete platform, you can fire up questions into the comment feed. I will be monitoring that as we go, and I will filter them through, ask her questions. I'm going to be primarily facilitating the conversation, and then Dawn is going to be obviously telling us all the juicy stuff about her experience on Everest. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Dawn. Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh my gosh, so fantastic. This is clearly my favorite subject. And anytime anybody wants to hear about this, I am the best ever.
Awesome. Well, I know we have got a captive audience, a bunch of people watching on all of our live streams. I know we're streaming on a few different platforms. And I heard some questions already from them. So we are rocking and rolling and ready to go. So first of all, just to give us a little baseline, bring us to base camp, so to speak, I would love for you just to take a moment, introduce yourself, where you're from, maybe what got you into this world of having this really high ambition, pun intended, on landing yourself on Everest, and like what actually landed you there, and what drove you to that place.
Okay, well, I'm a nurse practitioner, with Dawn Aiken, nurse practitioner. I'm born and raised in Idaho, and I live in Boise, Idaho, and I've lived here my entire life. I've lived in the same house for 20 years, and I have 2 children and a husband. And I was actually raised in and out of foster care, and was homeless at 16, put myself through high school and then college. And I know that Everest herself. I like to say her name. Her Nepalese name is Sagarmatha, and I prefer to use that name. So if I go back and forth, because that's her truest, that's her name, and it just evokes beauty when I say it. But I believe that mountain calls you from the beginning of the time. Like, so if you've ever thought you wanted to, it's because she's got your heart and she's dragging you there. And she won't let up. And when I was 8 years old, I remember saying to my mom, "I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to climb Mount Everest." And I remember her looking at me and said, "Honey, if you want out of this hellhole, you better be pretty and marry well." And that's where it started, And if you've ever, I know a lot of people who are probably listening, have felt like they can't, because I know mountain climbing brings people who believe there's so much bigger and so much more possible for them than the world has shown you. And so I know that a lot of people relate to that, but I believe that my alignment with Sagarmatha was truly what helped me propel my life into the beautiful life I have now. And it's because if you've ever had to shift from darkness to beauty, you know that there's a lot of dark nights of the soul. And my whole life, 1,000 times in my life, I've pictured myself standing on the top of the world. And when I didn't know what to do, I wowould say to myself, what would she do? What would she do? And I would imagine myself as that woman that had did it. And it gave me strength. And sometimes the answer was she wouldn't quit. And I would be all right. And so that's where she came from, in my life. I didn't climb her because I wanted to impress anybody. I actually, I showed up there this year. I'll cry saying this, I wanted to meet the version of myself that I had known was mine my whole life. I was doing it for deep, beautiful reasons. And that's why. Yeah. So
that's absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And you did it, and it's so impressive what you've done. And I'm sure, you've reached down through so many layers of yourself along the climb, which is one of the things I love most about a lot of mountaineers that I meet, especially within our community, that they are not just looking to tag the top of a mountain, they're actually trying to find a layer deep within themselves along this journey. So I want to start off with just, expectation versus the reality, because I know people have this Everest in their mind, what it is, what it can be, that sort of thing. I want to just establish what was the expectation versus reality. I know before Everest, you had heard a lot of stories about how brutal a lot of elements of the climb could be, but specifically the Lhotse face was, and you actually described, I think, in another video that I've watched, that you had been told you just got to put your head down and suffer through it. But then when you got on that Lhotse face and had this moment where you realized, oh, I'm going to be able to do this, I would love for you just to take us back to that moment, expectation versus reality.
Yeah. I'd never heard anybody talk about Everest and the Lhotse face and all these things, anything other than it's going to hurt, it's going to suffer. You're going to feel like your body's dying. Like, I'd never heard anybody say anything other than just the misery of it. And so I was truly prepared to suffer. And I've suffered before in life, and I was ready to put my head down and suffer again. And this moment, what you're referring to is the story of me talking about, like, when I started, up the Lhotse face. And just to give you construct, what am I saying there?
Context. Yeah. Please give us some context of the levels of the climb and everything. Yeah, that would be super helpful.
So the Lhotse face starts just above Camp 2. And so maybe that's around 22,000 feet, give or take a little bit. And to get on it, you have to go through this tiny little narrow path that is like crossing over this huge crevasse. It's like 300 feet deep. I think they call it the Berkshire. And then you go up this tiny little draw, just itty bitty draw, just enough for your body. And then you're on the Lhotse face, and the Lhotse face where it starts and goes up to Camp 3, but then ultimately all the way to Camp 4. So about 26,000 feet. So it's this 4,000 foot vertical blue ice wall. And from a distance, it just looks like white, but like up close, you can see that it's a turquoise blue, like ice. It's like crystal clear, and it looks like you could see down for 1,000 feet. Like, it's just this beautiful blue, and it's this ice that it's so hard. And so to get up it, you have to like kick your crampons into the ice. And if any of you have ever done ice climbing, you know that that's a lot of work. And so you think about kicking like a step for you, because it's really slippery too. And kicking. And if you slip and you're not clipped in, you are going to slip and slide down and fall into that crevasse and die. Like, there's no safety net here. Like, you don't fall on the Lhotse face. But I was most worried about, okay, this is going to be the hardest thing in the world. And I'm going to have to spend 4,000 feet kicking in a foothold for myself and making these steps on the way up. And I chose to climb Everest in silence, not taking pictures, and with a lot of gratitude, because, and this was part of it, is I chose to, with every single step, thank God for something that I had in my life. And I that was a long, many, many days. So there's a lot of steps, but like, as soon as I stepped onto the Lhotse face, I knew I was going to be okay, because there were these perfectly kicked in steps from the Sherpa, that had been carrying loads before me. I didn't have to ever kick, not one time. I just got to just step. And so, and I just felt this unbelievable like sense of just gratitude, for the people who've gone before me, that I imagine these just young men. Most of the Sherpa are young men, the same age as my own children, and they're carrying loads and making $20 a day to, pay for like just their family. And I imagine them being up there, because these steps weren't just little, they were beautifully huge kicked in steps. And I knew like they had done that for me, like it made it so easy for me. And it made me realize, like, as I just climbed the Lhotse step, and I hate to use the word climb, because I just got to like glide up, the Lhotse step because of what other people had done for me. I spent the whole time like reaching back in my whole life and thinking about every small thing anybody had ever done for me, like, and to make me like have a little bit and way. And what I realized too on the Lhotse face was, not everybody always is kind to you, but I also was thanking God for the people who hadn't been, because I realized that if I hadn't felt the fire to prove that person wrong, or to overcome that situation, I probably wouldn't have. And so it was just this beautiful moment where I realized that it didn't matter what had been done or occurred in my life. It was truly all like for like me, like, and for this moment. And it was this really, truly like profound, like sense of gratitude and sense of just connection to the whole. Like I
Mm.
knew, I don't know how to describe it. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful
Yeah.
moment on my face. Mhm.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, the steps being kicked in before you. I mean, it's kind of metaphorical of what it takes to do something like summit Mount Everest and the amount of effort that goes into it.
Yeah.
It's not just yourself out there, but of course, you yourself do need to put in a lot of work and energy and preparation. And I know you've run with this idea of 1,000 little decisions in
Mm.
advance in preparation. I know a lot of the mountaineers, trekkers, etc., that are on with us right now, they are in the midst of preparing for their own endeavor into high altitude.
Mhm.
And so, what I'm curious about is what are these 1,000 little decisions that I think you have said give you the 1% marginal gain here and there. And so, looking back now, which of those little decisions do you think really mattered the most in your process of preparing for Everest?
No, a good question. I would like to say, like, it for me, it was 1,000 little decisions, but none of them had to be done perfectly. They just had to be done consistently, and know that like that's going to get you there. But for me, the things that were like, if I had to kind of rank, I don't even know if this is like 1 through 5, but it would just be like the top five, all together. Um,
Hmm.
I invested in just surrounding myself with people who knew more than me. And I kept saying to like my coach, I worked with Mark Postal with Evoke Endurance. And I kept saying to him, I have no way to measure myself against this yardstick, no way to know, and if I would have just looked up on a plan online or something, I probably would have trained all wrong, but it was essential for me to have, and he wasn't the only one, I mean, I, learned as much as I could about high altitude medicine and physiology, from like experts and other physicians and, just everything I could in there. I worked with you, for breath work, training. I literally was like, I can't leave any stone unturned. Like I have to be as most knowledgeable about high altitude preparation as possible. And I don't know how to measure myself against this yardstick. And it was critical, like that I had like the right people that were able to hear me, know me, and give me direction on what they knew was best. And I'm telling you now, I would have done it all wrong. All wrong. I can't believe how radically different the training was for high altitude than it was for like my lifelong sport is full distance Ironman. Like I would have screwed it up in a bazillion ways. The second thing that was really important for me was just I chose it kind of goes together with like visualization. Like I chose to feel joy and feel wonder and feel like the wonder of doing it. Like every time I was training and like falling asleep and waking up, like I would picture myself doing it and on top of the world and just feeling the joy. Like I felt like it was so important to like feel the fact that it had happened. Like I'm not kidding you. By the time I stood on the top of the world, I could tell you I had felt the joy of standing on the top of the world 1,000 times because I made myself feel it. But I also was very, very conscientious of protecting myself from negativity. I've spent my entire life, this is a freaky thing to say, but I've spent my entire life without a TV. Go throughout my whole house, you won't find one. I raised my children without a TV. I refused, and so I choose like what I put into, I don't passively allow things into my brain, but I unfollowed anybody on Instagram that sent me something that was like, how many deaths on Everest? Unfollow. Like, even if you're my best friend, I would like tell you I was unfollowing you because you sent me crap. Like, don't fill my mind with garbage. Like, I would have never read Into Thin Air. Like, I did when it came out. I would have never reread it or revisited that. It was just, I only wanted to focus on the beauty of it, like the beauty of it. I didn't want to like have the negativity of all the things that could go wrong,
Mhm.
and then as far as like the things about my training, like specifically, I felt like breath work and blood flow restriction training were the two things that I did that nobody else did on my expedition. And I
Mm.
know that those two things made a massive difference, for me and how well my body performed at that altitude.
Well, I know a lot about breathwork training, so I'm not going to ask you to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, those on the platform probably know quite a bit as well, and we can talk about that. I'm curious about the blood flow restriction. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has questions about that and what that process was like. Like, not only what is it, but how did you implement that into your preparation plan?
Mhm. Yeah. So my trainer gave me a very specific strength training plan so that I would have the very specific, like muscular strength that would allow me to repetitively move at high altitude, for days and days on end, and not be able to fail muscularly wise.
Hmm.
And so what we also did blood flow restriction training. So what that does is you take these bands and you tighten them around like your thighs or your arms so that you limit the amount of blood flow, i.e. oxygen, to the muscles, and then you perform the exercise. And so it's very difficult. The first time you do it, if you're trying to do just body weight squats, you'll be doing 10 squats and your legs are on fire because they're not getting oxygen. And so you're getting into that lactic acidosis state very quickly, and you just feel the burn and it hurts so bad. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Hmm.
And what I did, knowing like, it's just kind of like my own brain, like, again, moving visualization, but I would put the blood flow restriction by the end, like, I could do an eighth of a mile weighted walking lunges with blood flow restriction on my legs, tight as I possibly could get them and not stop. And as I was working up to that, and again, like I would do like single leg, like pistol squats, like they're not quite pistol because you don't go all the way down. It's more, I don't know what Mark called them, but it wasn't a full pistol squat. It was like more of like you go down about it, like almost like you're walking downhill, but I would do those so many in a row, I would just get bored and just stop, like just so many in a row. But working up to that, like when the burn would start to happen, like it's almost like your breathwork training. Like this helps so much because, I would tell myself, you're not going to die. And in fact, there's going to come a moment in time where like your life will depend upon the fact that your muscles have to function without oxygen. And this might be the difference between life and death. And so I would shut my eyes, calm my brain, and feel beauty because I knew this pain was giving me my greatest life dream. And I would just go. I would just go. And it turned into almost like this, like meditative, like addictive pain. Like I loved it. But blood flow restriction training, like I hated it in the beginning and I loved it. But I mean, it was essential. I don't know how to describe how hard the descent is. Like, I don't know how to even remotely tell you how hard the descent is. The ascent, I felt like I was walking my dog. I was so strong. I never felt bad. But the descent was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And if I wouldn't have done that type of training, I'm not even sure what would have happened to me.
Okay. So lots of muscular endurance training from Mark. And then blood flow restriction, obviously paired with the breathwork training and whatnot. So that was a really nice formula for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Huge.
I love it. So I know that I think it was your coach, Mark, again, Mark Postal, Evoke Endurance. We've actually worked together on a few different clients that have done some awesome things in the mountains. Great person. Check him out, Mark Postal. He told you to potentially expect to feel fast in training, do all this training, but expect to show up and feel like the slowest person in the group. And I know that in my conversations with a lot of folks around the world, when one of their biggest fears that they have is being the slowest person in their group, being the one that actually holds their expedition group up. So I just want to talk through that with you. Like, how did you bring that potential, not negativity, but possible reality into your ascend up Everest? And then how did that actually play out in real life when you arrived there?
Yep. So first of all, just a small correction. Like he didn't tell me to expect to feel like the slowest person. He told me I was to be the slowest person. That's what he told me.
All right.
The slowest
Fair enough,
person.
Mark. All right. Some tough love. Okay.
My butt in the back. And the reason is it's multiple fold, but the short story is if you look at the data on who gets high altitude pulmonary edema, number one, I'm going to tell you everybody does, like at a small degree, like up there, and so it's very hard to go that high and not get some degree of pulmonary edema. But how do you prevent that to the best of your abilities? One is you have to not go too hard, too fast as you're as you're doing your acclimatization. That's critical.
Mm.
And so he wanted me in the back because he wanted to keep my heart rate in zone 1, if not the lowest end of zone 2. That was very important. And so you've got all these like thoroughbred horses, these are all Everest athletes, and they are just moving their fannies. And I'm just back in the back. It was a little embarrassing, but I, at least at dinner time and things like that, was telling people why I was slow. So at least I felt better about myself, but I don't know that they really got it. They were very kind. I had the best group ever, but so it is kind of an ego damaging thing, but I knew why I was doing it. The second thing is I needed to practice pressure breathing while I was acclimating up. That is so critical. And you can't pressure breathe once your heart rate gets to a certain level. You just stop. It's just not possible. And I could feel when that was, if I was going too fast or going up a hill, I could feel when that was. So my guide was okay, I'm going to not burn myself out with acclimatization. So I have less of a risk of pulmonary edema. And I'm also going to practice my pressure breathing. And then also the other big problem, especially in some of these high altitude treks, no matter where you are, is once you start breathing through your mouth, you have dry, cold air, and it's messing up, your alveoli and giving you more chance of getting the Kunbu cough. And the Kunbu cough isn't going to take you out, but the secondary infections on top of that will. And the two things that are associated with high altitude pulmonary edema and poor acclimatization that are proven in the literature, and this is just from, I can't remember I think it's Links, it's high altitude pulmonary or medicine and physiology. That's the textbook that I'm referencing right now. But it's, endothelial dysfunction, from, cardiovascular risk. And a lot of people have that without even knowing it. And 2, it is prior infection before as you acclimate. And so for me, I knew why I needed to go slow. I needed to breathe through my nose to practice pressure breathing. And that is harder than you think at altitude. It's a lot easier when you're just at home on the trails, but the second you get thinner air, it's harder than you think. And so I was grateful to have that 2-week trek up to base camp of just practicing it step after step after step. But yeah.
Can you show us right now because I know, I think it was you had mentioned, is it Tendi Sherpa was your guide that was helping you in coaching up the pressure breathing? Could you actually give us a little insight into how exactly he coached you up to do pressure breathing while on the mountain?
Yeah. So just in fair balance, you told the same thing. My coach said the same thing. And then it was really cool to hear it from Tendi Sherpa. He wasn't my official, mine was Wakpa. He was just one of our guides that was with another client. But yeah, he summited 20 times. So it's basically this: you breathe in through your nose. And so then it's to fill up your lungs all the way. And then you have to bear down so that it's almost like you're having a bowel movement. But the goal is to open up those alveoli, because the barometric pressure is making it so it's harder for you to expand your lungs. And if you think about those little alveoli, they're just literally one cell of air in between the alveoli. And so if they shut down, it's just like a little piece of toilet paper, sitting on the ground, next to some water. It just starts sucking up and you start getting pulmonary edema. And so you have to, and you can get this as low as 8,000 feet. And so you have to keep your lungs open, and you must do that through pressure breathing. And if you don't, you're going to get pulmonary edema. And so this is how I did it. It was just over and over and over again.
And okay. So again, just to emphasize the pressure you're trying to create, you said kind of like you're trying to go to the bathroom, basically. You're taking that deep breath, and then you're contracting in the midsection.
Yep. Just trying to
get. You're actually blowing, almost like you're blowing out a straw, I guess, maybe something like that.
Probably exactly how you say it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not Tendi Sherpa. I haven't been on Everest 20 times, but I have coached a lot of people in doing it. But I mean, I just love hearing how somebody else also coaches it. And I just wanted to bring some clarity because I actually want to emphasize this point to everybody out there. Pressure breathing is one of the single best things that we can do to keep our blood oxygen saturation levels high while at high altitude, amidst that low barometric pressure. Just as you said just now, Dawn, it is much more challenging to keep the lungs inflated with the scarcity of not only pressure in the air, but the scarcity of oxygen molecules that's also in that air. So we need to artificially create a more pressurized version of air inside our lungs. So I just think that's a super important point, and thank you so much for like outlining exactly how your coach do it and how you did it on the mountain.
It's the most important thing you can do. Like truly, like you cannot go higher if you cannot keep your lungs open. And everybody that high gets some degree of pulmonary edema. There's nobody that I saw, including myself, that didn't. Like it's going to happen. You're going to get some because it's just so high. It's just a matter of it's going to be bad enough to take you out.
So I'd love to also talk about not just how to breathe on the mountain itself, but what were some of the things that you did in advance of the Everest preparation? Obviously, we did some breathwork training together, but I remember you saying that you had some concern going in, specifically around your carbon dioxide tolerance levels and how a rise in those levels could potentially trigger some panic. It could really impact a fear response. I don't want to speak for you in any way, actually. What was the major concern that you had about CO2 in advance? And then how did that play out on the mountain itself?
Yeah. So with fair balance, like I'm in my specialty is I'm an internal medicine hospitalist and acute care cardiology nurse practitioner, and I love deep level medicine. So like I want to know like the ins and outs of everything. So if sometimes I go a little too hard on the pathophysiology. So if I do in this, this answer, I apologize ahead of time, but
Bring it on.
yeah, I mean, I know that like the human body, like the fear response, like this has been studied like a lot. And usually we have fear because we have the amygdala in the back of our brain, and that's your fight or flight, your fear response. But there are people who've been born with congenital like abnormalities where they don't have an amygdala or it's damaged for some reason. And in these people, there's this one woman I've referenced many times. I think I read about her in the book Breathe, so I learned about it in a breathwork book, but short story is she had a damaged amygdala and she was fearless, and she allowed really terrible things to happen to herself because she had no fear. And at one point she was studied by researchers and they did really terrible things to her, things that would poison your mind to know about, and you're like, oh God, that's a horrible thing to do to a human, but she would never be afraid. She just was like, oh, all is good. But then what they did, the only thing ever in her whole life of all the horrible things you could even imagine happening to a person that caused her fear was breathing a few breaths of straight carbon dioxide so that her blood levels rose sharply. It created a massive fear response. And something that you do for people in the very beginning of working with you is you have us hold our breath and you go, how long can you go before you feel like you have to breathe? You know what? You're not going to die. You're not. You can hold your breath for 4 minutes. You're not going to die. But that rise in CO2 is invoking a fear response that's making you breathe. And so I knew that. And here's the other part about this. If you're somebody who has kind of chronic stress or fight or flight, raise your hand, right? Have you ever had that in your life? You tend to have a lower CO2 in your blood level naturally because you do a lot more shallow breathing and rapid breathing. As a nurse practitioner, I can look at somebody and I just notice how many breaths you're taking and how shallow they are in the first minute. And I ask you about your stress and tell you about your life. And you're like, how'd you know? I'm like, because you're breathing 22 times a minute and it's shallow. But so you think about that and go, what does it feel like to hold your breath? And what does it feel like to take deep breaths in through your nose? If you just start doing that now, tell me how many breaths you can take in through your nose before you feel like you're going to suffocate, right? That tells me your low CO2 tolerance. And so now you're going to put me on a mountain where my CO2 level is going to be and my trainer told me, he said this, he said, there's going to come a minute, on that mountain where this happens and this happens. And he said, and you're going to feel so much panic and suffocation. And he said, this is where he never said women. I will say that. He said, grown ass men turn around. And maybe it's because women are tougher. I don't know. But maybe it's because,
no defense from me. You're going to get none.
Or maybe that's just because not very many women climb Everest, but he said, this is when grown-ass men turn around because of the panic of not being able to breathe, right? And so that was the great unknown. If you've never been to altitude for the first time, what does it feel like? I don't know. I didn't know. I'm measuring myself against a yardstick that I have no idea. So that's why I say that was the biggest thing. And so for me, doing the CO2 retention and allowing myself the practice of letting my carbon dioxide radically shift and shutting that fear response down, that was critical. Same as BFR treatment. I learned how to hold my breath for 4 minutes. And at 4 minutes, I still didn't feel fear and panic. I just felt like it's probably time to breathe now. And as I was working myself through the fear and panic, I would picture Mark Postal telling me it's when grown ass men turn around. I was like, you're not turning around. You're not turning around because you're a little sissy. They can't hold your breath. Like, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. Like, you're not going to die.
Super impressive. And by the way, a 4-minute hold is yes, that is impressive. So CO2 tolerance training, critically important element of the breathwork training. Obviously, as a whole with breathwork training, at least the way that we coach it, there's really 3 parts. It's get your mechanics right. So unlearn any bad habits you have around your breathing. Respiratory rate oftentimes is one of those bad habits, but also, are we actually using the diaphragm to breathe? Are we sending air low into the lungs? Number 2, it's the respiratory muscle training, actually working. Those muscles have to work harder at high altitude, so actually training those muscles. And then number 3 is that out of breath response training, CO2 tolerance training, a bit of hypoxic training as well with these high altitude simulation things. So just kind of, I'm just providing a little bit of color so people can place it in their mind where the CO2 tolerance training really stands in somebody's preparation. But it sounds like you knocked it out of the park. And obviously, so basically that, I'm kind of curious how that then played out when you're up there. Did you feel out of breath, or do you think that CO2 tolerance training that you did in advance limited? I won't say it eliminated, but it at least limited the out of breath feeling that you had while up on Everest?
Well, first of all, I want to give credit where credit's due. You taught that to me. Like, so that's 100% you. You don't, I've read everything I can on high altitude training, and nothing was better than what you taught me. So thank you for that. And I
appreciate you saying that.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I owe that one to you. And no, I never felt out of breath. Like, I felt great. Never not once did I feel out of breath. And even when I can count for the South Pole, that's like where they call the technical death zone, which, I hate that word because we're not going to die. We're going to be fine, I didn't want to put my oxygen on to walk over and use the bathroom because it's just so cumbersome to carry this bottle around and all this stuff, right? And, I walked over to use, you can't imagine how hard that is to walk over, without oxygen on, just use the bathroom. And then even at the top on the summit, it's a longer story than I'll share today, but I ran out of oxygen on the summit because we had given away so many resources to people on the way up that needed them. And I had just the bare minimum to get me there and back to the balcony. And we were out of oxygen, and it took about 20 minutes for my guide to find some oxygen for me. We weren't sure that we were going to be able to. And even in that situation, I wasn't afraid because I understood that I had enough time if I breathed right to get myself back to the balcony. I knew I was going to be okay. I knew I wasn't going to die. It was just not going to be like the greatest descent ever, so.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
well,
to answer your question, no, I never felt bad. And I was never even worried, even when the worst thing happened, so.
Wow. That's really incredible. Speaking of one of the worst things that can happen, leading up to your expedition, I know you broke your foot. So it's crazy, but oftentimes I do work with clients that in advance of this highly anticipated climb, something goes wrong. Tendonitis, it can be, or a broken foot. Literally just this year, I've had probably 3 people that had Kilimanjaro climbs scheduled, and tendonitis, especially in the Achilles, and then a broken foot happened. Talk me through what that mental process was like, and did it really threaten your expedition? How did you handle that mentally?
Okay, so this is number one. I have to hand it to Mark Postal. He told me, he said, Dawn, you wear shoes everywhere, because I had a client once who broke their foot and it took him out on an Everest expedition. So I'm walking around my house barefoot and do the dumbest thing, like break my foot on a weight bench that my husband had moved wrong in my house. It was like, because the lights were off and it was dark. And of course, just dumbest thing. Dumbest thing. I literally, this is the only bone I've ever broken. And the mental piece of it, this is a 2-part question or 2-part answer. The mental piece was, of course, Mother of God. Mother of God. what the actual F? Like, I don't know, like, of course, like, just think of what you would like think in that moment, right? But I knew, number one, I knew that I had prayed for two things. I had prayed, please God, let me see the top of the world. I don't care if it takes me 10 tries, let me touch the sky. Like, please give me that honor. Like, and then number two, I had prayed, but you know, I'm not going to stop and you know, I won't stop trying. So if it's not meant for me, make it so I never start. And so I'm looking at this going, I don't know what answer I'm getting. Like, but I'm going to trust that whatever it is, it's for like my benefit, you know? And that's a hard thing to do, but you have to detach from the outcome. So I had to detach from the outcome. And then the second thing was, is they told me it would take 8 to 10 weeks, and I only had 10 weeks before I was supposed to leave. And I was in the middle of my heaviest like training session. And so I'm really good at, I have a small concierge medical practice where I help people reverse disease and heal from the like hardest things in the world. And I'm really good at it. And so I told my trainer, I said, I will heal it in half the time. And he was like, I believe in you. You know, he never once looked like he was shocked that I said that, but I healed that thing in 3 damn weeks. Okay. And then we tested it for the fourth week and full back training on the fourth. And so, it was a benefit to me actually, in the end, because what Mark Postal told me was he said, there's a great unknown with some of these mountains where you push and you train and you do all this stuff. And then you get to Nepal and you have 6 weeks before you even start doing the thing. And some people's bodies don't handle that degree of like sitting around and rest. And so you aren't able to complete the task because you aren't strong, like with all that rest. Like just the time you had to spend. But for me, he said, you had basically 4 weeks off, but you came back your very first ME workout. After that, he said you were stronger and had better metrics than you did before you broke your foot. And he said, so now I know you have what it takes. And so for me, that mental piece, you know, that just that one little thing, like it's such a mental game, like to know you can. How do you judge yourself against the yardstick? You know, so thank God I had somebody like Mark Postal, who's coached the best athletes in the world, who could look at me and tell me something like that when I'm questioning myself and I don't feel strong enough. I don't feel ready. Like, how do you ever feel ready for that? You know? And so it was kind of a combination answer, but like to me, it ended up being a really good thing that happened to me because it gave me a mental edge of knowing like that I was strong enough.
So that's promising for all of us out there. If we injure ourselves, we're actually going to be doing rest training for when we get to base camp and we have to rest and then make our summit push. No, it's really 100%. Interesting perspective. So I appreciate that. So I wanted to talk a little bit also about this headache that you said that you had and how it comes into play around like making hard decisions on the mountain. I think it was on Lobuche East base camp. I believe this must have been like an acclimatization hike day sort of thing, right? Most people in your group were going up. You decided you had a headache and you were listening to that and decided to stay down. What was the process like of actually making that hard decision? I feel like a lot of us, I'll throw myself into this, a lot of people kind of get that either summit fever or just grit our teeth, going to get through any problem that we have because we're here, we invested in it sort of thing. Now, I know this wasn't your summit push night, but still, this is like a gray area sort of feeling, listening into your body. Talk us through like what that decision-making process was like, and then how did it actually end up being the quote unquote right decision?
Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time at altitude now, 7 months in total. I've been in Nepal, like training and climbing big mountains in preparation for Everest. And so I know from just all that different time that it doesn't really matter who you are, you will have some degree of acclimatization issues. So like nobody really is immune to that. Like whether it's a little bit of GI stuff, a headache or whatever, it doesn't have to be severe, but I know that it is the truth. It's 1,000 little decisions. And so I knew if I woke up I was around 15,000 feet at Lobuche East Base Camp, and everybody was doing our push to high camp, for training, coming down. And then the next day we were going to go up, sleep, and then summit Lobuche East, which is a 6,000 meter peak. And so I knew that by saying, like raising my hand and saying, I don't feel good today, like the worst thing that I could do, the worst thing you can do if you have any type of altitude issue is is go higher. Like the best thing you can do is hydrate, take care of yourself, and possibly go lower. And so I also knew that I had time. Like these big expeditions, or even some of the small expeditions, they have time built in for this because they're professionals. Well, if they're professionals, like go with a company that is professional. But like my company was professional. They have contingency days built in so that you can heal, you can rest, you can adjust the schedule. And so the only thing for me was raising my hand. And again, so now I'm the slowest. Now I'm the one saying, wah, 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 I don't feel good. Like I'm going to like sleep today and like, drink some water, have a great hike. I mean, but again, like, it was what I needed, and what's interesting is, again, I was with a group of, exceptional athletes, and I saw a couple people who ignored their symptoms because of pride. And, some people didn't make it, and some of those people that didn't make it, like I was telling them, go slower, do this, stop. Like, why don't you go down? Like I was talking to them and they were not doing what I was telling them, which was the best I had, and so, but it cost them their summit, and so again, like, do you want your pride? Do you want your ego, or do you want the top of the world? Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, I will do anything. And the story that really I held on to it like it was a pearl of great price, was a story that my climbing company, CTSS, told me. They said that there was this woman and she got really sick, and she was so sick, she had to fly all the way to Kathmandu and go to the hospital. And so she obviously didn't think she was going to make the summit, but because she was so sick and she went down, she got better. And then they flew her back up. She summited. They still took her up because she was healthy enough. Once she got healthy, they took her up and she summited on the last day of the season alone. She was the only person to climb Mount Everest that day. You know what I thought? I thought, God, I trust you. Like, I will take anything. If I could have that, I don't care what it took. And so I kept that in my heart. I was like, I will just trust, like whatever happens is going to give me one of two things that I asked for. Let me see the top of the world, or,
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's kind of like the broken foot story. Something that doesn't seem like a good thing in the moment in advance actually then turns out to be this incredible experience, the summit alone up top. I mean, that's really incredible. And also, I want to reiterate something that you said, which is this is not an ego game. It's not how fast can we get moving through this. Acclimatization is a slow process. Go slow, people. I mean, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience as well. When I've gone faster, that's when I've gotten myself in trouble. So I really appreciate you pinpointing that specific thing, calling that out for us. The rules to abide by. Do we want the summit, or do we want our ego to go a bit faster than the others in our group? Yeah. This question comes directly from the audience. We have a question here. Did you take prescription Diamox, cetazolamide, for those of you out there? I believe I got that right. I'm not a pharmacist, but I think that's right. And if so, did you take it prophylactically, or did you take it as needed? So like preventatively in advance of any symptoms, or did you take it as needed based on symptoms?
Great question. And yes, I did take it, but not in the traditional sense on Everest. And so if I, like when I first did my first high elevation climb, Kilimanjaro, I took it twice a day, exactly as prescribed. And then I even doubled up the dose, on the summit push day, because I wasn't feeling very good. And that's what you were supposed to do, and so I did exactly as I was instructed. And then every time I went to altitude after that, I learned more about my body, and I learned more about the acclimatization process. And then I experimented with different ways to do it, because I had a situation on Dublin where I was taking it and I had zero access to water because a rappel line broke. I had a critical fall. I had to descend alone. It was a very, very, very difficult summit and a very difficult descent. And the dehydration was probably the worst part, because I was taking Diamox, and you have to drink a lot of water when you're taking Diamox. And so having that experience, I thought, gosh, I don't know my access to water in the summit push for Everest. Like from Camp 2 to the summit back to Camp 2, that was, I think, 3 days. And like I probably only drank 16 ounces of water, like each day. Like there were just, it's not what you think it's going to be. Like you have to ask your body to do a lot that it's never done before. And so I knew I didn't want to take it if I didn't have to take it. And so I experimented. So by the time I got to Everest, like my 4th time in Nepal, the biggest mountain, I knew I didn't need it until I had a, so I started taking it in Lobuche East Base Camp, and then what I would do is I would take it as I went up, and then I would get back down, and then I would stop taking it, and then I would take it again when I would be doing an acclimatization, thing, and then not take it. So I was just kind of like working with my body a little bit, trying to, because if you have to understand what it's doing too, and if you understand what it's doing, it gives you a little bit more understanding. So it does 2 things. It increases your respiratory rate for you. And I noticed when I wasn't taking it, we were doing 5 days camped at 22,000 feet at Mira Peak, and sleeping everything at Mira Peak, and like just in this little tent. And I couldn't fall asleep without stopping breathing, and so I needed to take it at night because I needed to breathe, and I think I'm answering this in a really like twisted way. I did a very twisted and messed up protocol for Everest, but I did it very strategically where once I was taking it at night at Mira Peak. And then I noticed that when I was at Camp 2, which is about the height of Mira Peak on Everest, I was taking it at night again. But then once I went on oxygen, I didn't take it anymore because I didn't need it as much because I was sleeping on oxygen and I didn't want the problems with the dehydration. But we don't have to go into it now, but it works by increasing your respiratory drive, and then also by increasing, basically it's not bicarb, but it's like anhydronic something, whatever, like I'd have to look it up, but it like helps decrease bicarb basically through your kidneys. And so you have a more like balanced, like acid-base profile in your blood. So it does a couple things, but your body does that naturally anyway as you go up. But so yes, and I strongly recommend like practicing with it, taking it, having it available.
One follow-up question. You mentioned you weren't sleeping well, and you kind of hinted at that. What was going on with your sleep?
Yeah. So when you get to a certain altitude, and everybody's different, it could be Denver, it could be 22,000 feet, which it was for me, because I never had problems sleeping like until I got to 22,000 feet. It's basically this process where you just start having like periods of apneic breathing. You just stop breathing. And it's funny, you're trying to go to sleep and then suddenly you jolt yourself awake because you're not breathing. And I think they call it are there any doctors on the call that can probably tell me what it is? It's
periodic breathing is what I've always called it.
Something like that. Yeah. It's like Cheyenne Strokes breathing.
Shane Strokes. Yeah, that is a second way, but the layperson over here just calls it periodic breathing. Okay. And that's what I use with clients is I talk about periodic breathing. And it's the body sensing the low oxygen levels, and it's making you basically hyperventilate based on the low oxygen levels. But when you hyperventilate, you're offloading all that carbon dioxide, which happens to be one of the primary stimuli for us to feel like we take a breath. So if you've offloaded that, you go into this long apnea because your body's like, oh, I'm good. I don't feel like I need to breathe right now. And then all of a sudden, it's like you hit the hypoxic level then again, and it's like, and you come out. So periodic for me, periodic breathing, that's what you were facing, huh? And you took the Diamox at night to specifically increase the CO2 levels, by the way, in the blood, or the pH that CO2 typically impacts. For the record, people, it's not releasing CO2. It's actually, I believe, bicarbonate from the kidneys, which changes the pH balance. It makes it more acidic, which is the equivalent of what carbon dioxide does. And that's going to increase your respiratory drive. So you were doing that at night to help with your sleep.
Yes, I never on this trip. I never took it twice a day like recommended. I only took it at night when I was at those higher elevations, and then by the time I went on oxygen, I didn't take it because I was sleeping on oxygen.
Okay, got it. Cool, super insightful. That was really helpful. So thank you for that. I have a question. Maybe let's go 2 more or so. I have a really curious question. You summited Everest when it was dark.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go to Everest, obviously, for the photos at the top. I'm just being honest with us. I mean, people want the views and they want the photo at the top, right? You did it at night.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, number one, I'll probably cry saying it because it was the most beautiful experience of my life. Like, and I don't know how to describe, like, and because we climbed alone. So this year on Everest, there was a lot of trouble, getting the line set and all the things because the ice fall had a serac that was too big and there was no way around it. So it wasn't safe to go up there. That delayed the opening of the ice fall by a number of weeks. And then like, I can't go up because camps aren't set up. Like, think about like, I can't do anything. Like, I have to rely upon the Sherpa and the workers that like make it possible for me. Like, I can't do it alone, and so then they have to go up and set up the camps. But then the really big thing about Everest, and please read about it if you want to understand the magic of it. Like, it truly is a miracle that we can climb this mountain because there's a jet stream that is all on top of the mountain for like 99.9% of the time. And it's 100 to 200 mile an hour winds up there. And you cannot go up there when it's like that. You'll die. Like, it's not possible. And then there's the Asian monsoons sometime in May that like push a little heat wave up, and just for a few days, we're not talking a few weeks, we're talking a few days, lifts the jet stream just enough that the winds die down and you can go. This year, that Asian monsoon never fully lifted it up. So it was like this. And so they couldn't set the ropes. The gods, like, they must be gods. Like, I saw them, like, and I don't know how to describe what it was like to see like the rope setting team descend Everest. I was in Camp 1 when I saw them. Like, they went up there in the winds before the jet stream had lifted and set the lines. Like, and in my life, like, I mean, I will never be able to thank them for what they gave me, what they did. This year was incredible. And so because of that, there was really, if you looked at the weather report and everything, there was truly only about a 36-hour period of time where it was, I mean, there's no safe, but marginally probably the safest to go up. But because of that, we knew that everybody was going to attempt the summit on that same day. And so I did summit on May 20th, which was the busiest summit, of all time. I think 274 people summited that day. So our company, CTSS, they gave us a choice. They said, if you leave, at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll be the first up and you'll climb alone, like, which is the safest, but you will summit at night. You won't get pictures and all the things, but in my mind, like, I knew why I was climbing Everest. I wasn't climbing it to impress anybody with a picture. Like, I was climbing it because I wanted to meet the version of myself that knew I could, that had, like I'd spent my whole life like imagining I can be. And what I'd never said, and I've never said before, is that like, there was a night where I was in the middle of the night and I wasn't sure if I could make it. I wasn't sure if I had the strength to go on. And I looked up at the night sky and I saw all those stars, and I asked God if there was anything left for me in this world. And if there was, he had to show it to me now. I was just in my early 20s. I was just a baby. And God showed me a picture of me on the top of the world. And so for me, like, I look at it and go, I should have summited at night, like, because that's when I knew that that was my destiny. And so for me, like, summiting at night like, if you get the chance, summit at night. You don't want the picture. Who gives a fuck? Pardon my language. Like, I mean, 1 million night stars all by yourself on the top of the world. I got to climb Mount Everest alone. Like, I mean, it was incredible. The only people we ran into were just, Sherpa that had been with other companies that were up there kind of depositing oxygen and stuff. And it was beautiful. Like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was worth it. Mm-hmm. It was worth it. Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love the connection too with the moment with in your 20s version of yourself, kind of like that was also at night, clearly. And then you see yourself on the top of the world at night. I mean, yeah. Wow. I love it.
It was incredible. Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of closing thoughts. Number one, you have mentioned your climbing company a couple of times now. You've just said quickly CTSS. For those of you that don't know what CTSS is, do you want to elaborate on those people that kicked? I mean, I know it wasn't just CTSS, but they had a role in, metaphorically, kicking in the steps along your path toward Everest. But yeah, do you want to just explain who they are and that?
Yeah, climbing the 7 summits. And of course, if you're doing any type of elevation, you have a lot of choices out there. And there's a lot of wonderful companies, but there's a equally number, if not more, terrible companies. And I've had the honor and privilege of working with both. And so I know how important it is to be with a company that is reputable enough to know, not like to know how important safety standards are and know what to do like in an emergency, and not just be like ready to get you up there. And anyway, but yeah, I chose climbing the 7 summits out of every single company in the entire world because they not only have the safety, they have the heart, and they make you
Mm.
sign this thing like over and over again that it's safety first, summit second, and like, when you're going up, that means safety for you, your oxygen carrying Sherpa, your guide. You might be asked to turn around because you have to help another member of your team. And that's a brutal realization in a world where people, think it's all about personal success. But when you really realize what that means as a whole, it's very important, safety over summit. So I chose them because of that. But also, I'm so glad I did. I didn't realize how important this is. They have this no dickheads policy. And so you have to interview, and they actually turn away 2/3 of the people who request to climb with them because you have to be a good person, and if you've ever wondered how bad it could be, like 2 months with the same group of people, like, I'm so glad I was with them. Like, because anyway, yeah, I did climbing the 7 summits. I will never climb a single mountain in the entire world outside of using them. And I have used other climbing companies, and I will never not use them. Climbing the 7 summits.
That's quite a testimonial there. So yeah, I love their no dickheads policy as well. And shout out to Mike and Caroline and the whole team that runs their business. Yeah, they do wonderful work. So they are some of the people that kicked it in the steps metaphorically. I want to come back to that idea because you're on here right now with us, helping share your insight with a lot of people that, whether they're climbing Everest or they're trekking at Everest Base Camp, or they've got an Aconcagua climb coming up, a Kilimanjaro one, whatever it is that they're doing, you are sharing your insights with us. You are being one of the people out in front, kicking in the steps for some of us. So is that what you feel like? Do you feel that now that you've done Everest and the Everest experience, not done Everest, but that you've reached deep inside yourself to stand on top of the world, and now you're sharing this insight? Do you feel like you're kicking in the steps for others?
I sure hope so. Like I keep saying I don't feel like I want to be congratulated for that accomplishment, because I don't feel like it was an accomplishment. I feel like it was the most humbling, beautiful experience, and I was granted safe passage by Sagarmatha, and had the honor, and the privilege of having that experience. And there is no human word that I could ever use or even try to share with you what it did for my soul in every beautiful way. And I know if you're the type of person who like that resonates with, you better believe I want to help you get there too. Like, you deserve that. Everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves to feel what I feel like from that accomplishment. And I just know that for me, it was just knowing. Have you ever, how so many people say you can't, like, and then there's the one person who says, yes, you can. Like, I just remember in all my life, the few people who looked at me and said I could, and so I just want to be that for people. Like, you can. Trust me, if I can, you can. I said this to one of my clients. He's a Navy SEAL. Okay. I'm going to call him out for a second. He says, big, buff, badass Navy SEAL. I don't think he's a Navy SEAL. I think he's higher and more elite than that, but I can never remember his special operations. But he's like that. He's like the most elite elite special forces in the world. And he's giving me all these excuses why I can't. And I was like, if a 16-year-old foster kid from Boise, Idaho can pull her shit together and get to the top of the world, you better believe you can. And so again, there's the people who have enough ego to get themselves there on their own. But if you're one of those people who's like, I feel it in my soul, I just don't know how. Yeah, come on in. Let me show you. Like, I can, you can. It took me my whole life, but it was worth it.
Well, thank you for opening this world up to a lot of people that you can do it. And if you haven't been told this already, you really are kicking in the steps for a lot of us. So I really appreciate that very much. So how can people get in touch with you? How can they follow you and your continued journey? I believe you are on a 7 Summits, quest. Yeah, how can people follow along with what you're doing in the world?
Okay, I have a really big Instagram account. I have like 600 followers, so I'm an influencer.
Amazing.
Yeah, you can follow
Amazing.
me on
There it
Instagram. Yeah,
is.
that's my personal page. And oh my gosh, like you have to scroll down a little bit because I want you all to watch like this one, like that video right there that in the middle
This
on the
one?
top right pin. That's my favorite one. That's me thanking my guide, but it also shows at the end, it shows like CTSS made it possible for my son, who just graduated. He had to miss his college graduation from being an aerospace engineer to be there for me. But my son was standing at the edge of the ice fall when I came out from down on the summit, and like, oh, that was the best moment of my life. Like, it was the best moment of my life. But
That's incredible.
anyway,
So it's here at the end of the, we're
yeah,
going to let this run. So
that's a
hold
lot.
on. That's
Mhm.
who? Oh, that's Lakpa. Okay.
That's my
Is that
guy.
your,
That's my son. Yeah, yeah.
so
His friend.
there's your son right here.
Yeah, this is the
Oh my
greatest moment
gosh.
of my entire life. Nothing will ever compare to this, ever. I have lived a full life because of that moment right there. If I die tomorrow, don't cry for me, Argentina. I had that moment right there.
Wow.
There's my
That's
summit picture.
absolutely incredible.
Anyway, so yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. And also I made a community for my people who wanted just a little bit more. I mean, again, I'm very small boutique business, and that's how I hope to always be. I think there's 70 people in my community, but it's called Everest Energy. And if you just go to my website, which is linked on my Instagram page, anywhere it says community, you can join. It's free. And it has some things in there, like some speeches I've given and like a breathwork session that I made for me. Like, so it's what I listen to like 6 times a day, like on in base camp. And yeah, this is it. Yeah, there's 81 members. 81 members.
There we
growing.
go. There we
Yeah.
go. All right. Okay.
And
So
then,
Everest Energy Instagram, and I know I think you had created a guide,
yeah,
an altitude,
yeah.
healthy at altitude guide, right?
If you go to the discussion tab there and then
Mm-hmm.
go down to the channels that says like, yeah, click that. Yeah. And yeah,
I need to log in probably.
Oh, that's it.
So
Well,
I
if you
can't demo this. So for those of you out there that join the group and do the whole shebang, it's on there.
Yeah,
it's on this
it's
platform.
on
Okay.
there. Yeah, there's I did like an hour-and-a-half presentation on staying healthy at altitude and put together like a 22 page like guide on what I know about preparing for altitude from a medical perspective. And so anybody who wants to go to altitude, you need to read it. I promise you. It's just free. It's just there. It's just my way of kicking in the steps for people. So
awesome.
yeah.
Well, we're super grateful. We have one last minute question come in. Did you pre-acclimatize with a hypoxico tent prior to your expedition?
No. And this is controversial. So you just got to do what your coach says and what you feel right is for you. For me, I did not. And the reason is because I was really skinny. I was only a size 4. And my coach told me to put on 20 pounds for Everest. And so when you do that hypoxic training, like you metabolically start eating yourself at altitude. And so he knew that I would start losing weight and wouldn't get the quality of sleep and recovery I needed before going. And so for me, he said no, because I needed to hold on to my extra body weight. But for other people, I know for certain medical conditions and stuff, it's critical that you do. So you just need to have that conversation with somebody who knows more about your body, your health, and the process than you do.
Really great advice. I appreciate that. Well, Dawn, yes, thank you so much again for sharing all these insights, kicking in the steps for all of us. If you're curious, as we talked about, go ahead and follow Dawn, get on Everest Energy platform, download the Healthy at Altitude stuff, and continue the conversation. Yeah, thank you so much, Dawn. Really appreciate everything that you've done for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thank you for what you did for me. Like, truly, thank you. Thank you.
No.
I learned about you on a CTSS webinar, and it was I was all in. I was like, and truly like one of the best things. So thank you for what you did for me.
Well, I'm glad you found me, and I'm glad that I passed their no dickheads policy to be able to give that presentation. So anyway, yeah, right. All right. Thanks again to you and everybody joining as well. Really appreciate your time and attention. Good luck out there and breathe well, my friends. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, Anthony. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.